Hey there guys, and welcome to another Rogue Trader video. I'm doing this partly because you guys seem to like/enjoy the last ones, and partly because the players in my next Rogue Trader game, which is going to be on Metamancer's channel, are kind of looking over the careers and things like that, and I think they want to, figure out which career they'd like to play. So I thought we could do a video where we go over the careers and what the careers do and all this kind of thing. So, let's get into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the main careers and the Xenos careers, the Kroot, the Orcs, and the Dark Eldar. I'm going to talk a bit about how they play, kind of like as a standard career. There are like extra careers you can take that can take you down different routes and things like that. I'm not going to get into that in this video because there's quite a lot of them and they're very kind of nuanced. But to give you an idea, there's one called like the Augmenticist, which lets you it lets you do kind of slight tech stuff and also like augment your body with different mechanical pieces and biomechanics and things like that. There are others that are geared towards being pirates and things like that. It basically lets you specify a little bit and take a few extra kind of skills and talents and abilities. So anyway, we have gone over the Rogue Trader before very slightly, but the Rogue Trader is basically the captain of the ship, of the fleet, of this game. One thing I will say is that the best way to play this is you have it so like your Rogue Trader is your captain, and you can actually play without a Rogue Trader player. You can play it as like a crew, and the Rogue Trader is an NPC and things like that. You can even have multiple Rogue Traders if you want. Makes it more complicated, and there's more work for the GM if there's no Rogue Trader. But it's perfectly viable. But yeah, the best way to play it with a Rogue Trader as a player is you still work as a team. You think of all of your other players as advisors / kind of elevated kind of like advisors, crew members. So your Rogue Trader, for whatever reason, and it tends to play out this way, it is much more friendly, much more kind of, social, I guess, with these guys. The other players probably even be like friends. And yeah, it just means like quite often players don't want to be telling everyone what to do, and I think as in terms of RP it can be very detrimental to have one player who is kind of like commanding over everyone else. It's much better to play a Rogue Trader in kind of like I know what I want to do, but it's also important to get opinions from outside and that kind of thing. It just makes everything a little less worrying. If you have a Rogue Trader who's very like, if anyone disobeys me, I kill them, that makes it very difficult for everyone to RP and have fun, because they have to always be worried about, the Rogue Trader killing them or something like that. But anyway, yeah, the Rogue Trader is the captain. He does, if we look into his kind of starting talents, he's got like command, commerce, charm, some common law, evaluate, literacy, all this kind of stuff. He is a mix of like kind of charismatic leader and trader. So a lot of what you'll be getting from the Rogue Trader, at least starting out, until you can start like picking what skills you want. Obviously, they all have some form of combat skills, some better, some worse. The Rogue Trader starts with either like a power sword and a pistol. Yeah, mostly pistols and power swords and swords. Obviously, you can change it. You can get different gear, and you can move towards like a bolter or even like heavy weapons maybe. But you can see here like the stuff they get is mostly around being in command. So you have like Air of Authority, which lets you kind of command a whole load of people together. You have things like the Renowned Warrant, which makes you much more socially acceptable to people, and as the advances go on, you can see you get more command, you get more charm, you get secret tongues, you get kind of scholastic laws. So the Rogue Trader you can specialize them with other careers. Like there are Rogue Trader careers, like extra careers, where you can go more pirate, you can go more combat, like all these kind of things. Totally open to you, but the way you kind of want to be playing your Rogue Trader, like in just like a very vague sense, is a mix of like Bard and General, or Admiral in this case. But yeah, the Rogue Trader is really fun, but quite often people don't want to play them because they're like nominally in charge. I'd say, like, if you're worried about that, about having to make all the decisions, the best way to play it is to have a little bit of table talk, like semi out of character or even completely out of character, to decide what you want to do, and then you can as like a group, and then you as the Rogue Trader can decide what you want to do in character. And yeah, you kind of feel your way out on it. You know, sometimes the other players are perfectly happy to have a Rogue Trader who will kind of make the final decision as long as they have some input. But yeah, that's generally how it goes. And then like you got a whole load of stuff here, like a whole load of talents towards the end. It's got melee talents and shooting talent and ballistic skill, like ranged weapon talents, stuff like that. So, next up we have the Arch Militant. Now, the Arch Militant is everything combat, basically. They are generally, like, ex-military, or still military sometimes. But yeah, they often come from the Imperial Guard, for example. And they start with things like Common Law War, Dodge, Intimidate, Scholastic Law, Tactics, Imperialis, Secret Tongue Military, and you can see they start with like pretty easy ballistic skill and strength and agility. They have things like Forbidden Law Pirates, so they know about pirates, a couple of Secret Tongues, Ambidextrous, Quick Draw, Medicae even. They've got like tracking, and so think kind of like a more official bounty hunter to a certain extent. Like, again, you can build them how you like, and we're going to get, like, every career has like a special ability, like only for them. But yeah, think like any type of combat that you want to do can probably be done with the Arch Militant. Less commanding, I'd say, and a bit more combat focused. I don't believe they start with like a possible melee weapon. They can start with like a hell gun, which is really nice gun. They can start with like a long las, kind of las rifle, sniper rifle, or even like 2-bolt pistols. So they can like dual wield straight off the bat, because they actually start with ambidextrous as well. Or they can take ambidextrous starting off. So you can get really cool like gunslinger Arch Militant, or like a close-up melee even. So yeah, that's the Arch Militant pretty much. Like he does a lot of shooting and a lot of fighting. And if you want to be like kind of a pretty badass combat character, that if we're not including like the psychers and mutants and everything, then this is a good choice. The Astropath Transcendent is a mix of mage and he's a mix of mage and like space telephone. So the Astropath Transcendent, he can communicate telepathically like all over the universe, the galaxy, etc. He does also have a lot of psychic powers, which, if you don't know 40k, that's the equivalent of magic. It's slightly different, but it's the equivalent of magic. and they tend to have a lot of knowledge about the warp and psychers. You can see here they have like scholastic lore, occult, cryptology. They are also blind, but you don't need to worry about them being blind because they can still see. They lose their eyes, but they don't kind of lose the ability to sense visually, I guess is the best way to put it. So yeah, they do have like, they do start with weapons, you know, pistols and swords, but most of the time you're probably going to be wanting to use their psyker abilities. To give you a very, without having to go like dig deep into the psychic abilities and everything, to give you an idea, there's a lot of telepathy stuff, not just being able to speak with people kind of mentally, but you can also dig into people's minds and read their thoughts, and, you know, depending on how well you roll, you can actually know literally everything about a person. There's also being able to puppet and control people, make them scared. There's also like kind of psychic scream ability where you just damage them with like a huge psychic shout. There's also kind of, there's some divination stuff. I've never gotten too deep into the divination stuff because people tend not to pick it. But that's stuff around the idea of like you can gain bonuses by looking into the future. So you look into the future and you get a +10 to your dodge because you kind of know what's going to happen. It's interesting, but I'm not 100% sure on it. And then there's just the straight up kind of like telekinesis, like moving things with your mind. You can like move small objects, and then later on you get like force bolts and things like that you can fire at people. A lot of fun. But you, as a Astropath Transcendent, you are probably one of the more powerful weapons in Rogue Trader, at the same time as being really, really squishy and very likely to just explode. There is a role if you focus your psychic powers and you roll really badly, like really, really badly, you will just turn into a demon and your character's dead. So the psychers are awesome, but there's also always a possibility that they'll just flat out be gone, you know. So it's slightly risky, more risky than any of the other characters for sure. Not like super. Think of it this way: you'd have to roll 90 plus or like 95 plus twice on a D100. So it could happen, but it's less likely. And you can see like the kind of stuff you can go with is like a bit more command and social. There are obviously like quick draw and iron discipline and this kind of thing, like stuff that really gets you to do some like shooting and melee, because every character's going to have to shoot and to be in melee. But for the most part, you're a social character. You charm, you command, you have a lot of knowledge that you can draw on, and yeah, you do your psychic abilities, which is oof. Okay, so Explorator is the next one. They are the Adeptus Mechanicus. They are bionically augmented. They're tech priests. They, aside from having probably the best weapon start in the game, which is the Hell Gun or the Bolt Gun. The Hell Gun is really strong, especially against like demons and anything like heavily armored. The starting weapons, most of them for most of the characters aren't that strong, but the Explorator actually starts with a really nice weapon. Then again, you can get weapons reasonably easily in Rogue Trader, because depending on what your profit factor is. And they have a servo skull. They actually start off with quite a few augmentations, which can be really cool. They fix the ship. They install parts on the ship. They make sure the ship keeps running. Anything in the realm of technical, sciencey stuff, that's what they do. Very often they go kind of like very often they go kind of like archaeotech. They're very interested in like old pieces of technology, because in Warhammer 40,000, older is better. So going and finding some like really old power sword, for example, usually is awesome, because it's much better than what is around in general. So yeah, you can see here they have some forbidden lore and stuff like that, but they've got tech use, bit of trading, the Logis implant, the Auto Sanguine, Mechadendrite is like a big kind of hand claw that comes off their back kind of thing, which is really cool. And as you rank them up and you get more skills, they can go into Medicae. You can have a medical Mechanicus. But mostly it's around tech and kind of augmenting yourself mechanically, which is a lot of fun. And they do obviously have the shooting and melee as well skills here and there if you'd like them. The Missionary is one which I generally tend to advise people not to go with, just purely because it's a very specific character and it's hard to play it different. Like, the only way maybe you could play it and it would work with like a general Rogue Trader crew is if you play them as like a lapsed missionary. So, you know, they used to be a missionary, they still have some belief, but they're not like hardcore iron. A lot of the time people like to play Rogue Trader because it has a little more freedom than other systems, in the sense of how heretical you can be. When you have a missionary with you, it's kind of like playing with a really strict paladin. It's like, you know, they disapprove of everything you do. But the missionary's kind of fun. He has a lot of lore. He's got Medicae as well, so he can be your medic. You know, like keeping you guys alive. He's got good willpower and fellowship. So I'd say he's actually kind of good versus like demons and heretics and psychers, most likely. A lot of his stuff is... Oh, and flamers. He gets to use flamers like right off the bat, and flamers are actually pretty good. But yeah, a lot of his stuff is kind of lore based. You know, a lot of knowledge, a lot of social, and then some kind of, you know, some more melee and ranged base. But unless you can figure out a way to play a missionary without limiting everyone else's roleplay, yeah, I'd say avoid the missionary in general, unless you have like a very solid idea of not necessarily your character, but of how you can get the missionary into the team, and not make everyone worried that every time they do anything you're going to be like, no, you can't do that, I'm going to kill you, because belief. And it's a difficult one, I'd say, for sure. The Navigator is very, very cool. The Navigator is the mutant / kind of psyker who he goes around and he flies the ship to a certain extent, but he navigates the ship through the warp, which is kind of like the faster than light style of travel. It's very dangerous, it's very difficult. Honestly, I would advise every Rogue Trader crew to have a Navigator, partially because a lot of his attacks bypass armor. So he's very, very good against demons. He's very, very good against anything that's very heavily armored, very dangerous. He's a very heavy hitter with his kind of psychic type abilities. They're more mutations, but also, if you're playing it with the proper rules for warp travel, if you have an NPC navigator, you're gonna get lost, and it's gonna be very difficult to get places quickly as you want to go. If you get a player navigator, you're going to be much, much better at getting to places and doing things, basically. So Navigator isn't 100% necessary, but I'd always advise at least one player being a Navigator. So, yeah, the Navigator has mutations. The Navigator has like some psychic stuff. They can like freeze people, do kind of like psychic damage and stuff like that. As they build their character, they actually get more and more impressive. And they know a lot about navigating, about the Imperial Navy, obviously, about kind of the warp and traveling through the warp, traveling through, Navigation Stellar. They're a very useful character to have, considering you're in a ship. Aside from that, they get things like a Hell Pistol. Hell Pistol's quite good. It also actually penetrates armor. And as they as they carry on, they get they're kind of, I'd say in terms of combat social, they're kind of all round. I'd say they're a bit more utility to a certain extent. They're, if you're flying your ship, if you're traveling to and from different planets, you're going to want a navigator in general. You can get away with an NPC navigator, but the player navigators get a lot of abilities to help them going through the warp. If you don't have them, very often you can travel through the warp and end up in the wrong place, or 6 months later than when you set off, or there's a lot of fucky things going on with the warp. And it's best to have a player with good abilities and skills to kind of offset that a little bit. So, the really bad stuff tends not to happen. So yeah, that's the Navigator. You can see survival, swim, scrutiny, all that kind of stuff. The Seneschal. I really enjoy the Seneschal. He doesn't get played all the time. He tends to be the character that gets overlooked a little bit. Like, you want your Astropath, you want your Rogue Trader, you want your Navigator, and there's not always enough players for the Seneschal. But he is really fun. He is kind of commerce, logistics. He's very social and spy-like. You can build them in different ways, but they tend to be almost like an assistant slash kind of like second in command almost for the Rogue Trader. Like they do similar things to the Rogue Trader, but they're not command. They go a lot more specifically into commerce, barter, trading, spying, all these kind of things. Like a lot of social stuff, lying. They get a lot of lore about all the different kind of like parts of the Imperium. And by the way, when I was mentioning all of those things people tend to go for, like Rogue Trader and Astropath, the other one is Xenos. Everyone wants to be like an Orc or a Dark Eldar. There's always one that wants to be one of those. To be fair, they're very fun. And then you can see down here, like, they got like shadowing, which is stealthily tracking people, like, following them down dark alleys, stuff like that. Inquiry, logic, scrutiny, search, silent movement, sleight of hand, stealing, all this kind of stuff. A lot of common law, forbidden law. It basically means they tend to get good deals when they're talking to people, especially if their Rogue Trader isn't so much of a dealer. He doesn't go as social, and maybe goes like more of a pirate, of a combat Rogue Trader. The Seneschal is a great way to have a character who just can trade, can talk, can establish relationships with other like factions and things like that. Like the Seneschal's really good. Voidmaster. Voidmaster is interesting. You can, from the offset of creating the character, you can actually build him a few different ways. So what I'll say about the Voidmaster is he is the master of space. Whether it's the ship, the abilities of the ship. He can fly the ship, the big ship. He can use the weapons of the ship. He can fire those. He's very good with them, and he can fly like smaller ships, like shuttles and fighter ships and things like that, bombers, etc. So, yeah, common law, Imperial Navy and war, forbidden law, Xenos. Oh, he also knows a lot about Xenos, I believe. Pilot, spacecraft, flyers, astromancy, all that kind of stuff. He gets good ballistic skill, so he's a good shooter. He's good at shooting as well. And agility. Agility is usually used for flying stuff, and then willpower as well. He gets drive ground vehicles, forbidden law, Xenos, navigation, stellar. So he can fly outside of the warp, which is quite useful, especially if you don't have a if you want to do a lot of ship combat and you don't have a navigator player, then having a Voidmaster, there we go. My brain went blank. Having a Voidmaster player is a very good thing, because he can at least like pilot the ship in space, you know, outside of like warp travel and going back and forth. So yeah, he gets a little bit of tech use, hatred of pirates. You know, he gets quite a few good talents for melee and shooting, but a lot of it is piloting, a bit of command as well, and navigation, and I think that's going to take us, yes, to the special abilities. So that's Voidmaster. Voidmaster basically, to a larger or lesser extent, is the one you want if you want to be flying the ship, to be firing the ship's weapons, or you want to be like a kind of fighter pilot. Now this is like the extra ability that the characters get at character creation. You'll see that these abilities kind of talk to what the core of the character is. So, Rogue Trader special ability is Exceptional Leader. As a free action, once per round, the Rogue Trader may grant an ally that he can see or who can hear him +10 to any test. So basically, he can also use it in space combat as like it can be used once a strategic turn, which don't worry about that too much, but yeah. He can't give it to himself. So what this means is basically the Rogue Trader, when characters do actions, the Rogue Trader can go do it well, which became kind of a joke on my last Rogue Trader game. And he can say do it well, and they get +10 to their roll, to whatever they're trying to do. So that's very useful, obviously, Rogue Trader leadership kind of thing. The Arch Militant special ability is Weapon Master. Choose one and only one class of weapon. So melee, or pistol, or basic, or heavy. I think it may actually be like flamer, plasma, bolt, like, you know, that kind of thing. The Arch Militant gains +10 bonus to hit, +2 to damage, and +2 to initiative when using a weapon of his chosen class. So obviously very combat focused, and very specific combat focused as well. Like, it does behoove you to pick something very specific you want. So it helps to think ahead a little bit. Now, the Astropath Transcendent abilities, Soulbound to the Emperor, Psychic Powers, See Without Eyes, basically. The Astropath Transcendent is blind, yet at the same time, strange ability to perceive without using his physical senses. The Psychic Powers, obviously, you have telepathic and other abilities, gets to use astral telepathy, all this kind of stuff. And then Soulbound to the Emperor, it basically means that he is like an official sanctioned psyker, basically. You know, if you'd like to look into that, it's very broad and complicated to a certain extent, so we're not going to go into that there. But what this basically means is the Astropath has psychic abilities, and there's a few little bonuses like willpower stuff and things like that. The Explorator gets Explorator implants. Basically means that he gets mechanical augmentations. Pretty simple. The Missionary special ability is the Pure Faith talent, which I actually don't know about. Wait, we're on page 72. Okay, page 72. Pure Faith. Explorer is always immune to the effects of demonic presence, including negative modifiers to willpower. may spend a fate point to not take fear tests, not acquire insanity points, not gain corruption points, may burn a fate point to resist the effects of any single demonic or psychic attack, efficiently allowing him to emerge unscathed as if by a miracle. Was it 64? I think it was 64. Nope. A little bit further down. Okay. So yeah, again, it's useful, and it's very good against psychers and against demons, but I just, the Missionary is one where I tend to shy away from for roleplay reasons, because I like the players to be able to be as weird and goofy and stupid as they like. The Navigator special abilities, Warpie, they all have the Lidless Stare Navigator power. Lets you have additional powers, gain additional powers as you go along. Boons of Lineage, they all come from different Navigator houses. Some of them very powerful and ancient, some of them a bit less so. Kind of gives you an interesting option, and in terms of, like, you know, how you want to build your character. And also you got mutations. The Navigator starts mutated. You have to choose certain mutations from a list. I think you can choose them. The Seneschal special ability. Seneschal may spend a fate point to automatically succeed at any ciphers, law, or logic test. Doing so means the test is resolved in the minimum time required. In addition, the Seneschal adds 1 bonus degree of success to any successful commerce, inquiry, or evaluate. So if you succeed at commerce, you add a degree of success every time you succeed, which is really, really, people kind of, because everyone tends to think of combat, that seems kind of weak. But in terms of, like, inquiry, like asking around, trying to find things out, commerce, anything to do with, like, trade and money, and evaluate is, like, looking, you know, trying to figure out what items are, how much they're worth. In Rogue Trader, all of those things are super useful. And being able to automatically succeed by spending a fate point at ciphers, law, or logic means, like, information is just at your fingertips. Anyway. The Voidmaster special ability, this is why I said I'd kind of leave this to the end, because they have Mastery of Space, Mastery of Gunnery, Mastery of Augurs, and Mastery of Smallcraft. So Mastery of Space, reroll any, they can reroll all failed maneuver actions. So maneuver actions is, like, you know, speeding up, slowing down, turning, all these kind of things in, like, a really big, moving ship that's kind of hard to control. Yes, that's super useful. Mastery of Gunnery can reroll all failed tests with shooting actions aboard a starship. Again, like, rerolling your shots is super useful, especially, obviously, in combat. Obviously, he can't do that with, like, pistols and things like that, but aside from that, yeah, no, super useful. The Voidmaster can reroll all failed tests involving detection aboard a starship. Mostly that's useful for when a ship is running silent and you want to see where they are. You know, you need to keep an eye on them. They're trying to run away, this kind of thing. Super useful. Because if you fail, the ship disappears. You're not sure where it is. If you succeed, there it is, right there. Shoot it. And Mastery of Smallcraft, Voidmaster can reroll all failed pilot tests with a small craft. Shuttles, heavy lifters, gun cutters, starfighters, bombers, and so forth. Again, very useful, and it is very cool to have a player who is, like, a badass pilot, especially if you have a lot of ship-to-ship combat, because they can do, like, bombing runs, they can do, like, they can lead, like, lightning strikes, which is where they take their ships and they land on the enemy ship, they attack and, like, destroy something, and then jump back off and fly back. So yeah, those are all of the core. Those are all of the core. Let's leave it on that for a second. Those are all of the core careers that you can go for. Obviously, you know, you have a kind of fairly wide skill spread over all of them. They kind of cover everything. I'd say the important ones to think about: Rogue Trader. It's not impossible to play without a Rogue Trader player, but it's useful to have a Rogue Trader, and it's more fun, I'd say, to have a Rogue Trader player, because they tend to focus the story. They tend to focus the goals of your group, because they're kind of the leader. Astropath Transcendent is really useful, not necessarily needed, but very, very useful, especially in combat and social, because they can read minds and things like that. Very, very dangerous as well to play one. Well, more dangerous to play one, but worth it. The Navigator, again, is very important. The Explorator as well, I'd say, is reasonably important. And then, obviously, the Seneschal, Voidmaster, Arch-Militant are all very useful characters to have. And the Missionary, I'd say, in general, avoid. So yeah, those are the careers. And what we're going to do now for kind of the end part of the video is we're going to look at the aliens, the Xenos. I'll talk a little bit about them. They're a little bit different. They have like special rules to them and everything. So, if you want to be an alien, if you want to be a Xenos, it's perfectly legitimate. It's a lot of fun, and it can lead to some very interesting RP. But for example, if you have a Missionary, it may not be a good idea, because it can be difficult to slot in like a xenophobic Missionary who's like, all Xenos must die, with a random Orc or Dark Eldar or Kroot. So, let's go to the Kroot. They're kind of interesting. I've never played as one. They tend to be harder to use the Medicae skill on. They're harder. Their technology is different. Their characters are kind of stealthy characters. Let's have a look here. So, Eaters of the Dead, they can consume a corpse and get bonus wounds. Kroot who devours a fresh corpse gains a number of bonus wounds equal to the unmodified toughness bonus. Kroot gain +10 to concealment, shadowing, silent move, and they treat forest and jungle as open terrain. They have a natural weapon, which is their beak. They prefer light armor, apparently. So there's a few different options. You got like Kroot who've battled Orcs. They get plus toughness. So you can kind of like specify what type of Kroot you want. They get slightly different characteristics as well. They start with better melee weapon skill, better agility, but like worse intelligence, worse fellowship. I'm not gonna go super deep into all the specifics of the character. I'm just gonna give you the basics here. And also, I've never had a Kroot player. No one's really wanted to play a Kroot, so I don't know the intricacies of them. So they got like leaps. Oh, these are all talents. Okay, these are all talents. Let's ignore that. So they start with like awareness, concealment, dodge, silent move, speak language, Kroot, low gothic Tau. They start with a Kroot rifle, mono knife. This is kind of what they look like. They're kind of birds. They're chickens. Kroot leather, void suit, micro bead. You can see here they get like common law war, tracking, survival, wrangling. They can be good if you want to do a lot with like random Xenos animals and stuff like that as well, I think. So yeah, they kind of go around the idea of being a bit hard to kill, exotic weapons, and a lot of like hide, dodge, survival type things. So you're not if you have a Kroot character, you're not gonna probably be very social, and most of the time, I would imagine you're going to be away from the social side of things. So the crew's not going to bring you down to meet the governor of a planet. They're gonna you're either gonna be a visible bodyguard, or you're just gonna be left on the ship because they don't like Xenos. Then you've got Orcs. Orcs are a lot of fun. Everyone knows I love Orcs myself. There's a few different, like, careers for Orcs, but the main one is the Freebooter. Again, obviously, Orcs differ from humans. It's harder to medical them. They tend to be bad socially, you know, because they're bad socially. No one likes Orcs, and Orcs don't like anyone. They're a lot tougher. They can make their own weapons work. Other people can't use your weapons. There's some like talents and some different clans and stuff like that here. There we go. Yeah, so again, they get like higher toughness, higher strength, higher melee, very bad ballistic, and bad like intelligence and fellowship again. They get some common lore about Orcs. They get some literacy as Orcs, but yeah, they're not amazing at the majority of things. Let's get down to the. They also tend to come along with like Gretchen and Snotlings and Squigs, so it can make your campaign a bit more interesting / difficult, dependent because of how Orcs are. You know, you end up with a whole load of green skins on your ship, whether you want them or not. So here's the Freebooter. Awareness, Barter, Carouse, Common Law, Speak Language, Low Gothic. They start with like a Shooter, a Slugger, like a Chopper, you know, just like standard Orc gear, really. They have, I believe, yeah, they have like Drive, Ground Vehicle, Walker, Speak Low Gothic, Survival, Ambidextrous, a lot of different weapons. Brutal Charge is a good one, like starting off. Yeah, so I'd say Orcs in general are going to go towards like mostly melee, being very tough and hard to kill. Yeah, so, you know, like if you want a character that is harder to kill, then an Orc is a great choice. It's just you're generally going to also offset it with being probably not very social. You know, again, like the Kroot, and again, like the Dark Eldar, you're not going to be invited as much. Dark Eldar, you might get away with if you disguise yourself. I doubt an Orc or a Kroot could disguise itself to get away with it. So, yeah, most, and I doubt a Dark Eldar, for the most part, would disguise themselves willingly. So, but yeah, you got like Blade Master, Last Man Standing, Fearless. They can even cause fear themselves, frenzy, like all this kind of stuff. The orcs are ridiculous in terms of like combat, you know, especially melee combat and taking hits. So if you want to be an orc, perfectly reasonable. You know, the GM will always make these choices work, but just be aware of your, you know, you get some, as all Xenos. You get a lot of good, but also a fair dollop of bad, which like limits your characters in other ways. And then there's the alternate career ranks I was talking about. So Acquisitionist is a seneschal advanced rank. We'll just have a very quick look at this. So Ciphers, Underworld, Common Law, Underworld +10, Drive Skimmer, Forbidden Law Pirates, Gamble, Interrogation, Intimidate. Secret Tongue, Underdex, Decadence, Disturbing Voice, Hatred, Peer for different places like Workers and Hivers and the Underworld, Concealed Cavity, that's for like smuggling or if you want to like hide a weapon. Blood Tracker is some form of tracking, I believe. Paranoia, Crippling Strike, Good Reputation, like it just kind of like an Augmenticist is the one I was talking about before. So let's go to the last one we need to talk about, which is the Dark Eldar. Again, anatomy is more than a little different. Suffer minus penalties to medicate them. Appearances look far more similar. That doesn't mean that Eldar look like tall, thin humans. Eldar are taller, more slender, more poised. And their eyes especially stand out. At a distance, when robed and hooded. So basically, any Eldar or a human attempting to pass as the other suffer minus 30 penalty to any use of disguise he makes against a scrutiny skill. So if you're a Dark Eldar trying to be human, you get -30 to your disguise skill. So probably gonna fail. Then the Eldar are very agile, very fast, melee or ranged. They're very deadly. They like to use poisons as well. They also have the alien mind. Speak not unto the alien. Power through pain. Yeah, so power through pain. They get a single one fate point. All other characters, as far as I know, I'm not sure about the Orc or Kroot. I'd have to look into that because I'm not sure exactly like where it would be and where it would say. But the Dark Eldar get one fate point because they're very, very powerful, especially starting out. Whenever anything gets dealt pain or so when within like the perception bonus of the Dark Eldar, if anything is killed, stunned, non-lethal critical damage, blood loss, fail fear, or pinning, or subjected to excruciating pain, they get a pain token, and they can trade in pain tokens as they gather them for another fate point once they've used their first fate point. So the Dark Eldar get very few rerolls per game. It's very useful to have the rerolls, and only having one means you're never quite sure when to use it. But yeah, the Dark Eldar are they like torturing people, they like killing people, they like everything like evil and everything like that. Like, look at these guys, they're just ugh. So if we look at their abilities, they've got lower toughness, they've got lower fellowship, obviously, but they have higher agility, higher perception, just makes them a bit faster. They also get, I believe, agony, I believe they get unnatural agility, which basically means that they run faster. Let's see if it's in here. Decadence, disturbing voice, hard target, cable-like weapon training, melee, keen senses, non-imperial, matchless grace, power through pain. Oh, they don't actually get the bonus to the unnatural agility, but yeah, they're basically a lot quicker, a lot faster, a lot more agile, and they got better reflexes as well. So. And they can get like you can have them with like splinter rifles and shard carbines, or you can have them kind of melee. There's like 2 or 3 different specialties that you can have as a Dark Eldar, and one of them is a witch, which is a female Dark Eldar who's like a ridiculous melee specialist, a lot of fun. And then there's even actually a flesh crafter who's like a medic / drugs hound, I guess. Like he would be interesting to play, almost like a homunculus. If you know Dark Eldar, almost, I think they are very similar to that. So yeah, if we go down here, you can see they get concealment, deceive, pirates, forbidden law, ambidextrous, quick draw, resistance to cold, sound constitution, takedown, pilot, tech use, trueborn, Dark Eldar. And then as you carry on, you get like Deadeye Shot, leap up, sure strike. A lot of these you can see is like ballistic, agility, weapon skill, ballistic. Yeah, they're very much a fighter class, because they don't have much use socially. All of their stuff is more geared towards fighting. They can put out a lot of damage with their ranged weapons and with their melee weapons. So the Orcs, the Kroot, and the Dark Eldar are great if you need a combat character. You know, a character who's going to be very, very strong in combat. You know, if someone just wants combat, then these are very good characters to have. Roleplay wise, they're a lot of fun too. A Dark Eldar character can be hilarious, an Orc character can be hilarious and interesting as well. Especially if you're going for a more like pirate, heretic type of Rogue Trader game. The Dark Eldar and Orcs and Kroot can be very interesting. So Yeah, depending on how many players you have, I'd say like one or two Xenos. If you have like 5, 6, 7 players is all right. But keep in mind the core of the crew. It's always good to fill out, I'd say, at least 3 or 4 of these slots. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is what I would say is a good makeup for a crew. I would say Kroot and Orc are kind of extras. You know, if you're not sure what to take at the end when everyone's taken a career, Kroot and Orc are like a kind of a fairly decent choice if you want to go just, you know, add to that combat. Dark Eldar, I would say, are always a valid choice just purely because they can get away with being human if you want something combat. Rogue Trader, I'd say, unless you organize with your GM to have like an NPC Rogue Trader, I'd say you should at least have one Rogue Trader in every game. I think it makes the game so much better to have the Rogue Trader there. The Astropath, the Navigator are probably the two most important ones. Not just because they have very specific utility roles that can't really be filled by anyone else, because those roles can be filled by NPCs on your ship. It's just that the Astropath with the psychic techniques or the psycho techniques, the Navigator with being able to navigate through the warp, makes them super useful just in general. The Militant, the Explorator, and the Voidmaster are all... I'd actually say the Seneschal and the Explorator are the next most useful. The Explorator for reasons of being able to work with tech, repair the ship, you know what all of these different buttons, and, you know, if you find any specific tech or anything, they can figure out what it is a lot easier. And the Seneschal for similar reasons. You know, especially if you're going to be... I'd say the Seneschal's more specific. If you're going to be doing trading and a lot of social stuff, it's probably worth taking the Seneschal, definitely. The Arch-Militant is a little bit cancelled out by Orcs and Dark Eldar and stuff. They're not as necessary. The Voidmaster is a bit more necessary because they can be, you know, being able to use small craft or, like, use the guns on the ship, that kind of thing. Very useful. The Missionary, I'd say, in general, avoid, but if you can figure it out, then it's perfectly reasonable. And yeah, that's all of the main ones. Again, the good thing about the kind of expanded books as well is you can take an Arch-Militant and turn them into something a lot more useful. You know, there are a lot of very specific careers that you can take as all of these things now, whereby it lets you be a bit more specific. You can take Arch-Militant into Augmenticist, and then you have kind of like a very strong combat character who has bits of tech knowledge and things like that, so they can kind of make up maybe for not having an Explorator, but it takes a little bit of time to get there, so, you know, just these kind of things. I'd say, final thought, the most important thing to keep in mind with Rogue Trader is basically, like, Rogue Trader is very fun because in general, you know, your GM will probably have a story for you. But that, you know, if you're, and this is for GMs as well, this is my advice, don't have a set in stone story for Rogue Trader. Build a big area with lots of planets, lots of very specific story hooks, lots of very specific storylines, and spread them all over the place, and let your players like slowly discover this world, this setting, this story, this campaign, and go where they like. And, you know, they may go to the planet where there's you know, orcs who they can trade with or barter with. You know, they can maybe find the Dark Eldar pirate cabal and make a deal with them to do something, get betrayed, you know, whatever. Like, have a whole load of really interesting crap dotted all over these planets, like stuff to kind of get the players trying to figure out what they want to do in the area and where they want to go, what they want to see. And then, like, if you want to have a like really big overarching storyline, you can. I think it's worthwhile having some things going on in the background, some big stuff, you know, intrigue and you know, maybe like a Tyranid invasion fleet or whatever, something to really challenge them with. But you want to kind of take that slow and just let them sandbox it for a while. You know, make a whole load of planets ahead of time, have them all ready to go depending on where they want to travel, and it makes it a lot more fun for everyone because it gives this feeling of like anything can happen depending on where they go, depending on what they want to see. They can, you know, they can really help. They can really be integral in crafting the story and the setting and everything as they go. So yeah, that and as players, keep as imaginative as you can while playing, because you know you can. It's very, very free in Rogue Trader to do whatever the hell you want. You're very powerful. You have, you know, hundreds of thousands of people under your command a lot of the time. Well, tens of thousands of people under your command a lot of time. You can literally set up an outpost, like a very small outpost for pretty much nothing on a newly discovered planet, and leave them there to science and tinker while you go off and you pirate a ship. And you bring the ship back, and then you build a space station over there, and before you know it, you have like 3 or 4 ships, also piloted and crewed, and you know you have a fight with you have a disagreement with some other rogue trader, and you're in like a 10 ship space battle. You know, those kind of things are maybe it's over your colony that you've set up, or your space station that you put in their like area of influence or anything like that. So yeah, it's very, very interesting, and it's a lot of fun if you embrace it. So be imaginative as players, and as a GM, be prepared, and you know, try and give them a sandbox is my advice. So there's Rogue Trader, guys. There's all of the careers, all of the main careers. Obviously, if this is popular and a lot of people enjoy it, I'm happy to go through through the extra careers, but I don't think it's super necessary. I think, you know, that's something you can search quite quickly yourselves, and once you've got an idea of the original careers, the extra careers are pretty obvious. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to go and follow Metamancer, link in the description, on twitch.tv at the beginning of February 1st, I believe, we'll be doing character creation on that channel at, I believe it's midnight UK time. If you don't live in the UK, you can figure it out. And we're also, yeah, after that, we're going to be starting the campaign. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have some already interesting ideas on characters and stuff. I've just done this to kind of help everyone try and figure out, you know, exactly what they want to be. So thanks for watching. Rogue Trader, I believe it's Rogue Trader the Breach, is coming soon on Metamancer's channel, link in description, and go follow and get ready for a ridiculous campaign again.